Hi, this is Shapiro. I work at a public library and I'm really interested in expanding my knowledge about generative AI tools. So I was very interested to find out about this book so that I could go beyond my current knowledge of ChatGPT and I can learn about other tools and maybe ways of using different generative AI tools together. So this book is written by Pam Baker, who's a freelance journalist. I've read some of her previous books, which were really top-notch. So when this book came out, I said, I must read this book, and so that I could become more knowledgeable. It never ceases to amaze me that a book of this kind is available for $23. It took literally hundreds of hours for the author to write it, and hundreds of hours also for the editors at the publisher to produce this book. The book sells for $23, but you can also get the Kindle version for $18. So this book review is going to give my impressions, and it's also have some screenshots. I got the book as an ebook, so I have screenshots from the book to help you better determine whether this book is the right book for you. Let's take a look. Here's Generative AI for Dummies. That was the cover. Here's the author, Pam Baker. She's a prolific journalist and writer. She's written other books. I read her ChatGPT for Dummies, a very good book, earlier book. She wrote Data Divination, Big Data Strategies, and she's a speaker at business conferences and the rest. Anyway, very impressive writer. I have to say, I'm in the knowledge business working at the public library, and her knowledge is not more than mine. It's much, much more than mine. So it's pretty interesting. If she ever wanted to, she could find a job at a library in a microsecond. Here's the table of contents, just to give you a sense of what this book is. I have a little bit of the table of contents. I'll let you read this on your own. Let's look a little bit more. Introducing the art of prompt engineering. That's interesting. Crafting effective prompts for diverse AI applications. Collaborating creatively with generative AI. The role of AI in art and music. And this is towards the end of the table of contents, exploring advanced Gen AI models. So that's really interesting to me. I'm always interested in the advanced stuff. Down here it says under chapter 13, finding mini GPTs and GPT app stores. Well, that's all new to me. I don't know anything about that, so it's useful for me to read about it in this book. And then here's towards the end, 10 tips for advanced prompting. Well, that's worth the price of the entire book, probably. You know, tips can be very useful. Here we go. Creating Gen AI prompts is giving computers instructions. Well, this is really interesting. So this is a frame of mind. When you're prompting the computer, you're giving it instructions as if you are a computer programmer. So you have to choose your words carefully, and then the more practice you have, the better you get at telling the computer what you want. And so I've become a better prompter in the past year. Sometimes I can come up with a very short prompt that gives me an excellent result. That's always a thrill where you don't have to spend much effort and you get a lot of results. Gen AI models are always learning and getting better. And there's a new one popping up all the time. So you should choose the right tool for the right purpose. That does make sense. Now, at my public library, my supervisor, who's very smart, she told me I should start looking at perplexity.ai. So I should probably be doing that so that I have other tools besides ChatGPT to be using. And here she talks about iterative prompting and prompt chaining. I like the prompt chaining thing. It's where words are, tasks are broken into steps, with each step building on the one before it, added like a link in a chain. So here I am, I'm learning the terminology of generative AI so that I can better explain this to people who come to the library when they have a particular purpose I could say, why don't you try some prompt chaining? And then I might give them some examples. Be wary of consensus. So that's important. You have to kind of challenge yourself so that you don't get into any blind spots, or you don't put your foot into some biases or prejudices, which is easy to do. There's so much prejudice and bias in our society that if you're not wary, you can make mistakes and harm yourself and harm others. Collaborating creatively with Gen AI. Well, that's interesting. And here in this chapter, she also talks about ethical considerations. That's important. She talks about content farms. Yeah, I hate content farms. Content farms is when there's unethical people just cranking out content, and it's stolen or plagiarized and barely rewritten. Okay, it's interesting. It's good to know. Sometimes when you're using the internet, you'll come across a content farm and you go, this is just junk that somebody has done to make some money. Navigating the evolving landscape of generative AI. So, in this chapter, she's talking about autonomous AI agents, which is a little scary, but it might be interesting. I introduced you to the world of autonomous AI agents. I like this. This is my phrase at the top: to know, you must do. So you can't just kick the tires casually to understand what an AI service is all about. You have to use it for more than 15 or 20 minutes to develop an opinion about its possible uses and limitations. So she says, in other words, test drive more than circling around the block. Push yourself and the model to see where you end up. Because in my experience, many of these generative AI models, they have capabilities that are not easily understandable. You have to go looking. You come to understand the capabilities by using the service. So, improving your prompting skills with practice. There's a huge demand for Gen AI power users. This is the interesting part where she talks about journalism skills. So journalism skills can help you with your prompting skills, like interviewing skills, subject interviewing skills. Almost every job going forward is going to require prompting and Gen AI management skills. So that's interesting. After I finished reading the book, I went to look up some journalism AI tools, and I'll show you at the end of the book review. I ended up someplace quite interesting. Sprucing up your writing with Gen AI. I like this part. Now, in my own experience, when I use generative AI, I sometimes say, assume you are Ernest Hemingway, or write a story in the style of Ernest Hemingway, a short story. Or I'll say, write a poem in the style of Robert Frost. Or I'll say, write in the style of Mark Twain, a satire. So those are all fun to do, and to see the results. The results are often very interesting, I think. Tips for using Gen AI to write books. So this particular book was written with the help of generative AI, but I think the generative AI was used lightly, so that it was not used heavily, and it was used carefully. So generative AI can be helpful used in the right ways. But you can't just sit down and tell generative AI, write me a best-selling book. It doesn't work quite that simply. Warning, hazards ahead. So yes, this is the same kind of warning as she gave earlier. If you're not careful, there's so much prejudice and bias on the internet that you can repeat that in your own creative works. And that's harmful to your personal reputation and can be harmful to other people. And so you have to be very careful about that. So Pam Baker is teaching some generative AI courses for LinkedIn Learning, which used to be lynda.com, Lynda.com. And I got curious to find out which public libraries offer LinkedIn Learning for library card holders. So I asked ChatGPT to give me a list, and it gave me this list. Here's the large urban and regional libraries. You might recognize your own city there. This is suburban and local libraries, and I see 2 here in the Washington, D.C. area, Fairfax and Montgomery County, which means that all the other Washington, D.C. area counties can also use that LinkedIn Learning, because there is reciprocity between the library systems, so that if you live in Prince George's County, you can get a Montgomery County library card, and if you live in Arlington County, you can get a Fairfax County card, and then use the LinkedIn Learning. And then if you don't happen to see a library that offers LinkedIn Learning, you can go and pay for the courses yourself. They are well worth the money. LinkedIn Learning has a reputation of producing high-quality training videos online. They're training courses in the same style as Udemy. Udemy is also, I use Udemy as well as LinkedIn Learning. And then these state library systems offer some LinkedIn Learning. So that's California and Texas. You might want to check that out if you live in those states. So if you're curious in my other book reviews that I've done, I do book reviews in video form. I do that for a couple of reasons. It takes more effort to do things, but more effort is sometimes what is appropriate in this world. I make the book reviews as a way of giving thanks to the author, because they spent hundreds of hours writing the book, so I could spend maybe 5 or 10 hours making this video book review. So it's my way of giving thanks, and then the incidental beneficiaries are readers. But I make the book reviews for the authors, and anybody else can benefit too. You can find out about my background there at opensource.com. It has links to other articles I've written, and my YouTube channel and other stuff. I'm making this book review using LibreOffice presentation program. I love open source software, so LibreOffice presentation is roughly equivalent to PowerPoint. And then I'm making the screencast. I'm using ScreenFlow for the Mac, which is one of my favorite screencasting programs. I also do screencasting on Linux with Simple Screen Recorder, which is outstanding and totally free. I used a template for this presentation, and the template is Creative Commons. I wanted to give credit here in the video. So this template was created by Kelly Loves Wales and Nick Merritt. So thank you for the 2 of you for that. Now that we've come to the end of this book review, I want to show you what this book prompted me, or prompt is not quite the word. This book emboldened me to go and do some artificial intelligence stuff. So I'm going to escape out of here, and I'm going to go to my browser. Here's my browser. And so after I read the book, I felt bolder, and I wanted to look up some journalists' AI tools. I said, Pam Baker's a journalist, and she is very knowledgeable. Maybe I'll look up some journalism AI tools. And I came to this website. It's called the journalisttoolbox.ai. You can go to the website yourself. And I scrolled down here, and I came to this thing called GPT Engineer, where you can build web apps. GPT Engineer is from Sweden, and it's now called lovable.dev. Lovable.dev. Here it is, lovable.dev. And let me show you what I made. Emboldened by this book, I made a version of my math game called Pairs Math Game, P-A-I-R-S, pairsmathgame.com. That's a paper math game. That's a recreational math game. And over here, it took me only 10 or 20 minutes to make this web app where you have to find 2 numbers that add up to 100. For example, 95 and 5, or 17 and 83 down here on the 3rd row, 17 and 83. So here's 83 and here's 17. And then here's 95 and here's 5. And So, and you can scroll down, and you can scroll down to find more pairs of numbers that add up to 100, and then you can also regenerate. So now the way I've set this up, you can find pairs of numbers either in a single line or in 2 lines. So over here, most of the time, not always, but most of the time it's in the same line, like you'll see 5 and 95 in the same line, or let me see an answer here. If I saw a 40 here, I'm looking for a 60. I'm going to take a peek. Aha, 73 and 27. So I pressed the space bar. Space bar gives you a hint. There, I told you, I gave you the hint. So 73 and 27. And you can use the space bar as you're teaching children about this game. Use the space bar, and so they get a sense of what the kinds of things they're looking for. Anyway, I made this web app because I was emboldened by reading Generative AI for Dummies by Pam Baker. So to say this book was a success means that I was emboldened to go and do something after reading the book. And that is really the hope of everybody who works in a library, that books can embolden people and make them more powerful and give them dignity. So in that respect, this book is a success. And thank you, Pam Baker. Thank you, Pam Baker. You might not have expected that. Soon after I read the book, I started making my own web apps. But that's what your book did. It emboldened me, so thank you for that. This is Phil Shapiro. Until next time.